Okay, hopefully you guys can see me again. I changed the latency settings around a little bit in the YouTube buffer for the stream, so hopefully that will make it a little bit less choppy. If you're getting audio issues or anything like that, please let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to, you know, correct that as we go. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and let's get going. So any questions that you currently have in the chats for me about Blender, I'm going to be doing a little bit of 2.79 and 2.8 in this sort of Ask Me Anything. So if there's anything you're curious about, we can talk about that. But before I launch into all of those questions, give you guys a little bit of time to get those into the chat, let me kind of show you what I've been working on. So I won't spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot here, but this is sort of some of the recording that I've been doing for um, the 3D illustration course that I've been working on. And so the easiest thing to do would probably just be to pull up my editing software and show you guys what this looks like. And so currently, I'm kind of going through and recording some projects, and then I'm going back and doing some audio on top. I'm going to be doing a little bit of speeding up and slowing down in certain areas to try to cover the high points, the things that I think are going to give you the most value for what you're working on. So the thing that I kind of want to show you is just like how much footage we currently have to work with, which is why it's taking so long to kind of get this course out. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of October. A lot of that's going to depend on kind of the feedback that I get from you guys. And so if you were on the Orange Guild mailing list, you can head over to theorangeguild.com if you're not on it to be on it. But I'm going to be sending out a survey in the next week or so that will be asking you what sort of things you want to learn in this course so that we can get a better fit for everybody. So I've got a couple of projects I'll share. This is let's see the real-time breakdown for this pocket watch video here. You can see if I make this full screen. I've basically got the entire process for a hard surface model like a pocket watch detailed outline here. Now this is actually going to be kind of bonus footage. So this entire process, as you can see, took about 10 hours to complete over a period of several days. But this is all real time. So if you actually watch it, you can see me designing the face for the pocket watch in Illustrator, and then in Blender you can see me actually building it out. And I go over the texturing, the UV unwrapping, all the stuff you would basically need to know to get this into place. And what's really cool is there's a lot of unique things that happen because of this model that need to kind of be put in place to make it practical. So you can see I've got some sculpting that we go over here for the bezel of the pocket watch. And so a lot of cool things to show off in terms of techniques that you guys can use for your projects, hopefully. Hope this is valuable for you guys. And I just wanted to kind of showcase what will be kind of discussed in the course. So we'll fast forward a little bit here, and you can see you've got some UV unwrapping we're doing, and just trying to get a good layout, and then we go over a lot of detail about how to create this chain that has a lot of interconnected pieces, and I even show you a little bit about how to use some advanced features in Blender called drivers, which will help you change things like the detail level of your subsurf modifiers on the fly for this, which can be helpful because sometimes when you're rendering you need to turn things on and off quickly, and because there's a lot of separate objects here in this chain, because that's the way we needed to rig it for animation, that allows you to, with one value tweak, the entire string of links in the chain in terms of the subsurf modifier with one value. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, so we make normal maps, talk a little bit about that. Just the whole process is covered. And again, I don't really want to do 10 straight hours of commentary for this. So what we're probably going to be doing is a lot more discussion about how to get in here and kind of hit the highlights, what we really need to learn, and then I'll kind of zoom past some areas that are repetitive in places. So that's one project that kind of go over, and then of course, if you've been following me on not Pinterest, Instagram, sorry. Had a moment there. If you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably seen a post about a rabbit's foot. And so in this one, it's a little bit shorter, about 4.5 hours. Again, all going to be sped up, edited, so no editing done yet here, but I'll show you how to create a realistic looking rabbit's foot, and we'll be going over how to do hair particles in Blender in a way that is realistic, and I'll talk about lighting and how to get realistic looking fur created, and how to edit the particles so they're brushed and going in a certain direction, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm excited about that. I haven't really touched on hair much in any of my previous courses, so there's going to be some fun stuff there to go over. A lot of things about how to control the hair, because the hair can be a little bit crazy to work with if you're somebody that has worked with longer hair in real life. Whether you have long hair or somebody it can be a mess to deal with. And so it's similar in 3D in the way that you have to kind of maintain and manage and deal with it. So there's tricks to that, and I'll be sharing some of that. Also be sharing the process for grooming and trying to get a sort of rabbit foot keychain in place. And a secret to this part is really knowing how to showcase the fur with the lighting, using some special cycle shaders and subsurface scattering, and things that you would get depending on how you light the hair. So there's a lot of custom little tweaks here and there to make this work, and knowing the ins and outs of how that works is important, because if you want to do this for a wolf or any other kind of creature, this can help, and of course hair for humans as well. So this is the entire sort of process. A lot of tweaking, a lot of editing that still needs to be done to speed this up, but you can get the picture. We get to the end of this and you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. So anyways, that's what I've been working on. I still have the main part of the course to record, so super excited to get into that. But before I get all of that finished and start editing, I really want to hear from you guys what you want to learn. So you don't have to wait till the survey comes out. If you want to drop me a comment, if you see this video later, or if you want to drop me a line in the chat, definitely do. This whole course is going to be about creating 3D illustrations that are worthy of being award-winning 3D illustrations. And so I call it that, because it sounds good, but basically the whole idea is how to tell a story with a 3D illustration, because that's what an effective 3D illustration is you basically knowing how to effectively communicate a story with an image. And in this case, we'll be talking about specifically how to do that with Blender. So I'll be talking about how to create the actual objects. That's the sort of technical side of the course. I'll also be talking about the artistic side of how to create a good image compositionally. So we'll talk about traditional storytelling techniques in art in terms of how to lay out composition, positive negative space, how to embed symbology and depth in your images, both in terms of physical depth and also emotional depth, through the things that you juxtapose next to each other and things like that. And so I kind of have some good ideas, I think, for what you guys might benefit from, but ultimately none of that's going to matter if you aren't getting something out of the course for you. And so that's really what I want to hear from you about tonight. If you get a moment in the chat, drop me something that you're very, very interested in learning about. Would be crazy awesome if you saw this in the course. Use your imagination. If you were to create the best, most amazing 3D illustration that would get you published in a magazine, get you more clients, or get you that interview that you want so you can land a job in the industry somewhere, or just whatever your dream is, let me know what you would want to learn, and I'll be happy to take that into consideration as I work on this course, because I want this to work for you. Okay, so let's get into the Ask Me Anything. Now is the time to drop those questions in the chat if you are watching live. Would love to get some questions going in there. It can be 2.79 or 2.8. I've got both installed in the system right now, and so either one is fine. But I will go ahead and open that up, and in the meantime, I'll get started on some other stuff so that you guys can have some fun while we're talking about other things in Blender. So this is 2.79. For most of my rendering these days, I'm still using 2.79, dabbling in 2.8 because I want to, make sure I keep up to date for you guys when we start getting into more tutorials for the YouTube channel and the guild and all that sort of stuff. But it doesn't look like it's going to be fully released until early next year, or second quarter. Who knows how that's going to work out. But in the meantime, that's why I'm sticking with 2.79. So what I decided to work on tonight is kind of an interesting project. Got a question in the chat. The Emerga is asking, where can we find your arts? You can actually see them on my personal portfolio site at brandonhicks.com. So if you, I'll just show you here. If you go to brandonhicks.com, it's just an ArtStation portfolio that I've put a custom domain on. So this is some of my best 3D illustration type of work, and this is actually from the concept car from the car course that's currently in the Orange Guild training. So you can see some renders of that, and kind of cool stuff there. And then this is an illustration of last year that's kind of got some cool things about it. This one was actually published in 3D Artist, so this was the first thing I ever did that really got huge public recognition last year, and pretty proud of that. So you can see all the concept art, behind the scenes, breakdowns, wireframes. So anything that you want to see is there at brandonhicks.com, or you can find me on ArtStation, which again is the same thing. So again, some more 3D illustration stuff. So tonight I'm working on a fun project. This is an anniversary present for my wife. So last Friday, if you were hoping to see a live stream, I wasn't here because we were celebrating our 6th wedding anniversary. So super fun time, excited about that. And I always try to do something a little creative for my wife. So she may pop in the chat and give me some feedback tonight on this project, because this project is for her. She is a huge Harry Potter fan, and so what I'm working on is the Slytherin Common Room. She wants a realistic, semi-realistic 3D illustration of the Slytherin Common Room. She doesn't want me to just copy it from the movie. She wants me to create something that's a little bit more customized for her, a little bit more like the description from the books and things like that. And so we talked a little bit about what she wanted. You can see in Photoshop tonight, I've got a little bit of a scratch piece of paper that I did some sketching on with her, so that we could talk about placement for objects in the scene and what was most important for her to see, and so we can talk about any of this stuff tonight. And I'm going to be basically blocking this in tonight, so you'll see me work on a little bit of placement really quickly, trying to get this in. My goal is to get this done in about 8 hours, this entire thing. And so I'm not going to be spending months and months working on this. I just want to spend a few days spread out to get this finished, and it's really going to be a test of how can I not over embellish in areas, how can I not be a perfectionist, how can I instead be efficient and try to get done what needs to get done, and then focus on spending the time where it needs to be spent wisely. So you can see some of the details that we talked about a lot about are these little hanging lamps. They're going to be hanging from the ceiling. It's a very large, sort of ominous kind of room. A lot of intricate carvings and things like that. So these are some basic sketches of some chandeliers or some lamps or just something I thought would be interesting. All of this is sort of my take on what this could look like. It's very loose, you can see there's not a lot going on here, but we're going to try to turn this into something. Lorian says, yikes, Slytherin. Yeah, I know, me and my wife are both Slytherin. We're both Slytherin, so that's I know. I wasn't a fan either when I first found out, but we are. So kind of nerdy, but I know. Yeah, so the Emerga says, I remember I followed you. The Gibson, Done for Your Father, if memory serves, is such a beauty. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I did that guitar as a Christmas present for my dad a couple of years ago. So yeah, thank you for remembering that. Thanks for the compliment there. And I hope you guys enjoy the stream. So start getting your questions in, because I'm going to be going back and forth between things tonight. We may go a little bit over 2 hours because it got started a little late. But in the meantime, I'm going to start talking about what I'm working on here, and then blocking that out in 3D. So the main thing that I want to kind of get across, and this is going to kind of be a preview of the course we're working on for you guys to be released this October, which is the 3D illustration thing I just talked about. So the most important thing in the very beginning is kind of knowing what you want to get out of this project. There's a lot of different reasons you could be doing a project, a lot of goals you could set for yourself, but ultimately every illustration that we do, every 3D artwork, piece of 3D artwork that we put together, no matter what our end goal is for getting a job, or if it's for getting published, or if it's to just get better, or maybe it's to get hired by more clients. Maybe you're trying to get more business generated as a freelancer. Whatever it is you're doing, graduating from a class as a student, it's your final project or whatever. Whatever you're trying to do, ultimately, the one thing that ties all of us together and brings us in under one umbrella is the idea that we're all trying to communicate an effective story, because story is really the key element that drives home the purpose for the illustration. And so I'm not talking about some abstract concept of, depth and meaning that you find in some piece of artwork that is subjective. What I'm trying to say is that when we watch a movie or we listen to a song, we may get different things from that piece of creativity, but we all feel something. And so ultimately, when you're creating a 3D illustration, you want to be thinking about not only the reason you're doing this for yourself, but you want to be thinking about the person who's going to be consuming the content in the future. What do you want them to feel when they experience your content? And ultimately, if you can figure out the answer to that question, you can start to make creative decisions early that will dictate whether you are successful at making them feel a certain way or not. And that's kind of what I want to drive home tonight. Got some more questions in the chat. Do you guys speak Parseltongue? Love that, Lorian. That's good. You need lots of snake motifs. Yes, we do. There's gonna be lots of stuff like that. So let's talk about kind of what I'm doing this for tonight. Obviously, this is an anniversary present for my wife. Doesn't need to get a lot more complicated than that in terms of the goal that we're going for here. But I want to make this touch on the areas that I know are important to her. So that because this is a specific piece of artwork, and you can think of this as a commission for her, if you're doing 3D artwork or any kind of artwork for a client, or maybe someone who's paid you because they want you to create something they like, that's called a commission. They are commissioning you to create something that is important for them, right? Now, a lot of times, if you're talking about making good money, that's going to be for clients that need it for a business purpose, right? And that's going to be something that they're needing for another audience, right? They're either going to be reselling that, or they're going to be needing it to make an impact, such as in marketing or something for selling another product. But commissions for individuals are, again, going to be about connecting them with your artwork and touching them in a way that makes them feel a certain way. And so for my wife, what I've been trying to do is hone in on what are those key elements in the image that really make you feel like this is a cool thing that you want to hang on the wall, right? She basically wants to have something cool that I print off that we can hang on the wall. So I know Slytherin, first of all, anything Slytherin she's going to love because that's Harry Potter and it's her thing. But we talked about the fireplace, the mantle you can see over here. I'm going to pull up a little bit of a screen sketch thing so I can kind of do some notes here. So the mantle here, big lavish mantle piece. The doorway, the archway kind of gives some depth into the image, so you can see that there. We got some hanging banners on the walls here and here, and then there's this big window she wanted to make sure I put in that had because actually in the book, I guess the Slytherin common room is underwater. It's under this lake in the book. So there's a sea creature out here that we have that she wants to be able to see, and it's going to add some ambient lighting and some interesting moody things to the scene, so she wants to have that in there. We talked about specifics with chairs lined around this big fireplace and all that sort of stuff, and then of course we talked about these big hanging lights that you see here. So she let me kind of talk through this with her, so we planned this out in terms of the framing and what she wants to see in the shot, and then I went through and on my own sketched up some very crude ideas in pen and pencil for what this needs to look like. And then she came in and she was like, oh, that's great, and so now I can go off running and kind of take their wheel here. So that's basically what we're gonna end up kind of doing is laying this out. Okay, so now that we have a direction, let's look at the chat, make sure we're caught up, and then I'm going to jump into Blender and start getting in here. The America says that's level 3 things. I'm level 0 or 1. I only draw create for me. Level 2 must be for a particular person. Okay, I get you. It's early. It's cool, though. Everybody here is on different levels. I'm still learning myself in terms of, trying to level up in certain things. And so we're all learning. And tonight, hopefully, you can walk away with something that is going to be helpful for you. So let's jump into Blender. Okay, now the first thing I want to do is, there's a temptation to get into something like this tonight where you are laying something out and you want to get perfect. Now, depending on the purpose, there's a time and a place for that. But tonight, I'm really just trying to get my camera set up, the walls, everything in place, blocked in, so that I kind of know where it should be. So I'm not going to be so concerned about making sure everything's perfect. Instead, I'm going to be focused more on making sure that I can get everything in place the right way. So if you have questions as I go, that's why we're here tonight. Slow me down if you need to. That's fine. And that's definitely why I'm here for you guys. So ask me anything you want. It doesn't have to be an important question. It can be a basic question. It can be a really basic question. As long as you're getting something out of tonight, that's what I really, really want. So don't feel afraid to ask me what I'm doing, what keyboard shortcuts I'm hitting, whatever, because that's definitely why we're here. So I'm going to switch off some stuff here because I don't want to have to look at everything that's turned on. And if at any point in time you guys want me to pop into 2.8 and do an overview of something there, I'm going to be working primarily in 2.79 tonight, but I definitely have 2.8 up on my computer, so we can jump in there too. Just let me know. Okay, so before we get too far into what we're doing in Blender, I need to prep this so that I can actually see it in Blender. So let's talk about how to do that. So whether you've been gathering stuff from the internet, Pinterest, taking pictures, I actually just sketched this out and then took a picture with my cell phone camera and then pulled that into my computer. You want to be able to get it into Blender, right? So that's the first thing. So if you haven't done this before, it's not too hard to get this done. You need something like GIMP or Krita or Photoshop to do this. But once you kind of learn the basics, it doesn't matter what program you're using, you can kind of do the same thing and get it all over there. So the basic idea is you want to remove the background so that it's basically uncluttered. If you want to move things around, you need to do it at this point so it's more organized. And then you need to get rid of stuff that's going to be distracting. So all of this little sketchy crap down here, we're going to want to erase that out so that I'm not getting distracted when I'm looking at the key elements here. So basically the things I'm going to keep are this little sketch here that I'm going to clean up. I'm going to keep this little archway, this little chandelier thing, and then I'm going to keep this big long hanging light that you see over here. But everything else I'm going to get rid of. So this comes in as one layer, and what I want to do is work on how to separate things out. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a new layer, and I'm going to drop in a background. So I'm going to grab my paint bucket, fill the background with a color, and in this case I might do something. I don't ever really like to use pure white unless I'm just sketching in Photoshop. It's easier on the eyes to do something a little bit besides pure white. So I'm gonna drop that below the main image. And then if you want a really fast way to do this, you can turn this into a multiply layer, and it will actually just kind of drop anything really, really dark onto the layer below it. So if I were to change this to another color, you'd be able to see that right now. So let's say I fill this with something like a green color instead down here. So there you can see the multiply layer on top is only leaving behind the darker parts of this image. So a quick way to see how this is working is basically if I add something like a levels adjustment. I'm only using levels because it's one thing we can use curves, we can use exposure, we can use anything that will let us control the lights and the darks in the image. But basically what I'm trying to do is isolate things here. So I'm going to crunch the contrast a little bit. And then I'm going to move this middle slider so that we're getting rid of some areas here. And if we pull this up, you can see it'll start vignetting a little bit and getting those areas in there. The more we pull towards the middle, the more of these gray values and lighter values are going to start disappearing. So you can do that, pull it back to a side over here. And any of the really, really dark areas will stick around, so you can kind of see what that's doing. So just have to decide which direction you need to go to make this work the best. So it looks like pulling to the left is going to do what I need it to do there. And it's just going to be a game of tweaking these values to try to make sure this is working for you. So once you get that kind of dialed in right there, you can kind of merge this down. So I'm going to duplicate this layer just to make sure we have a backup. Turn that off.
and then I'm going to merge that down so it's collapsed and it's kind of baked into the image. So we can turn this back to a normal layer. You can see what that did. It basically took the background and brightened it up, kind of got rid of that darker gray in the middle value there, and it's just leaving us with more of a white and black sort of representation. Now, one thing I didn't do here that I usually do is I desaturate this and turn it into a black and white image. So you can do that by going and making this a grayscale. You can do a hue and saturation and desaturate, or you can just use Control Shift U in Photoshop will just automatically desaturate the entire thing for you. And so now, if you were to use a levels like we just did, it will probably work a little better because it's not having to compete with all of those other values and those colors. So it's really just up to you how much detail you want to keep, but basically you want to get rid of as much of that garbage as you can. Okay, so that's probably about as good as I'm going to be able to get this. It's going to naturally vignette because I used a flash on my camera, so that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. And all we really need to do now is go in and kind of work on what we want to get rid of. And to do that, you can erase, but I'm going to use a mask because I can bring stuff back if I mess up. And I'm going to kind of go in here with my brush. And I'm just going to paint with black on a white mask the areas that I want to get rid of. And that will basically allow me to kind of erase out these areas that are not necessary. Now, I don't want to get rid of all of this up here because it kind of shows me what's beyond the frame. But I want to get rid of some of it. So pull all this back. And I'm doing a pretty quick job of this here because I may end up just putting this on a new page because this is a really big image right now.
I've got some questions in the chats. America says, is the draft a picture of a pen and paper doodle? Yes, it is. So I did some pencil here in this area, and then I did some pen. And I like to change mediums a lot when I'm working traditionally, because it just depends on how I feel that day. So I do a lot of pen on paper, but occasionally I'll do photo blue pencil, or I really like doing just regular ballpoint pen on a sketchbook. Most of my sketches are done that way. So whatever you like to do is fine. Okay, so let's apply the mask so that it is completely gone. You can see all of the transparency behind here for the areas we've kind of gotten rid of now. So let's fill this again with white so you can kind of see behind here what's going on. And now we can kind of rearrange things a little bit. So I'm going to grab my lasso tool here. And this just lets me draw masks with my pen on my tablet and make selections. And so I'm going to draw a really rough mask here. Move this one over to the side. Switch back to my lasso tool. Try to be a little bit more careful about how I cut this one out. Move this one down here. And I'm just trying to organize, similar things in line and, try to get this to where we're not wasting a lot of space on the page. Okay. So what I might actually do, because I know I'm probably going to be relocating this onto a new page to save some space, is try to get this into a more rectangular format. And that will kind of help with laying this out a little bit better. Okay, so one of the things we don't need is probably all of this excess up here for this hanging lamp, so we can get rid of some of this. Just keep the important stuff. And I don't spend a lot of time doing this, but I want to kind of make sure that I've got some room here to work with. So now what you can do is you can crop this, or just start moving things over to another page, whatever you want to do. So let's say we're happy with that. I'll crop it. Okay, I'm going to create a new image and make this basically just the size of my screen. Doesn't really matter what it is, but in this case, I don't want it to be huge. This is
This image over here, even cropped, is still a little big. It's about 3,000 pixels wide. So I'm gonna get rid of this image. Okay, so let's go ahead and collapse all of this stuff. And I'm just gonna paste this in here so you can see how big that is. Scale this down a little more. Okay, so we got some questions in the chat. Looks like MediaWorks is asking where do babies come from. I don't know if I can go into that on the chat. That's on the stream. That's a little yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that in person. Why not make each sketch a separate layer? You can definitely do that if you're gonna move these around. I'm trying to just get this collapsed and done in place to a place where we're good and happy with this all in one picture, because I don't want to have to be scrolling around in Blender with different layers and all that, because it's just going to be messy. So that's the only reason I'm doing that. Morgan says I use PureRef with each source image randomly set. Yeah, that's good. I just got PureRef 2 on, I think it's on this computer somewhere. Yeah, there it is, PureRef. So if you guys haven't seen PureRef, it's an awesome image program. Heard about this from Gleb Alexandrov and 80 Burrows from their latest Blender course, which is awesome. If you haven't checked it out, it's a new hard surface course. But yeah, you can load images in here, and it just drops it on your desktop, kind of keeps it above everything, and then you can rearrange stuff really quickly for reference images and all that kind of stuff. So that's a perfectly awesome way to kind of load stuff in, and I'm playing with that a little bit. But tonight, I want to get this in Blender so I can keep it all on one screen for you guys. So I'm going to save this now, and let's put this under the rights folder here. So I'm going to name this, let's make it a PNG, and let's make this, just call this reference. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be going a little long on the stream tonight because there's a lot more left to do. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of this, and we'll just close that now. Okay, so now let's talk about how to get an image into Blender if you guys have never done it before. It's really easy, lots of ways to do it. You can use planes in the background like we have here, or you can use the built-in background images feature here. What I'm probably gonna do is create a little bitty window up here that I can use as a placeholder for my reference image. So I just want to make this about the same width and height as proportionally as you would see for that 1920 by 1080 full HD image. Switch this over to a UV image editor, and I'm going to open this image. And first thing we need to do is jump into the correct folder for tonight. And I'm going to open up this reference image. So there's that. Okay, so we can keep it there, keep it at a distance. If we want to jump in and see it full size, we can hover over this window and then hit spacebar with Shift, and that will go full screen, and then we can zoom in and kind of look at stuff. So that's kind of what you can do there. If you want to hide this, you can just drop that down to collapse that little menu, and that will go away. Okay. So, taking a look at the chat to make sure we are good with everything tonight. Okay, we're good. All right, so be sure to ask me some questions if you guys think of any as we go. And in the meantime, I'm going to be laying this out. So I'm going to zoom in on my framing here, and we're going to need some walls and things like that. So to make this really smooth and easy to edit, I'm just going to use separate planes right now to get this blocked in. So I'm going to switch into a side view, maybe make an orthographic side view. Hit Shift-D to copy that, right-click to cancel the move operation, and then let's rotate this -90 degrees so that it's standing straight up. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and kind of move this up so that it is positioned like a wall. And what I want to do is basically just get the other wall in place. So I'm going to duplicate that, rotate it by 90. We can move that down. over, and now we've got basic box. But again, the great thing about this is that everything's separate. So a little hint here, if you are kind of moving things around and you want to stay in orthographic, not orthographic, perspective view here, and you don't want to have to worry about not being able to keep things kind of on the ground in one axis. There's a way to do that. So you can constrain the axis in two directions at the same time by removing one axis effectively. So let's say I want to move one of these walls, but the more I stay in this view or any other view that's not straight off to the side, it's very hard to line this up without using this technique. And so what you want to do is say, all right, well, I want to move in the X and Y directions, as you can see down here in the lower left-hand corner, but I don't want to move this up and down because it's already height-wise basically where we want to keep it. And so what you do is you hit G to start moving, and then you hit Shift and Z to remove the wall from translating in the Z-axis up and down. So that way it's only going to move in the X and Y axis. And as I'm kind of moving my mouse around, you can see that it's sticking to the ground there. And so now we can kind of use that to make sure that no matter what angle we're from, this is not going to come off of the ground, which is good for us. And we can kind of really quickly block in some basic things here. So it doesn't really matter how big the floor is because, you know, we're going to look at it from inside the room here, camera view. We're not going to see the floor too much. And so we can quickly jump into this wall. Let's say we want to make a cut. So we're going to hit Control R to create a loop cut here. And I'm going to make this a pretty big room. So we're going to drop the top of the archway down to right about here. Might do this again. Leave a little bit of room on this wall. And then once again, we're going to drop that skinny, narrow archway somewhere in there. So I want to switch into face mode here. Right click to select that. Hit X and then delete that face. And that will be kind of a placeholder for where that archway is going to go right here. And then, of course, we also want to be able to put in this window alcove. Now, this is kind of inset into the wall a little bit. So I'm going to tab back into object mode so that we can switch to this plane. Back into edit mode. And now let's go ahead and make some more cuts. So Control R to place that. Come off the wall about this far. And then I'm going to come off the wall way over here. And then jump into face mode again. And now I want to extrude this back into this edge over here. So I'm going to hit E and then just start moving back into the wall. And we get a little bit of alcove space right there, so that's good. And that's all we need to kind of get this lined up into place. So we don't need the floor plane, so I'm going to delete that. And there we go. Got a little window right here. Okay, so back in the chats. Emerga says, could you explain the project you're beginning? I was a bit late, so I probably missed the explanation. Yeah, so this is an anniversary present for my wife. If you've seen the Harry Potter movies, this is going to be the Slytherin common room for the Slytherin house. It's kind of underwater under a lake. And so this is an underwater window, and then it's basically where they hang out as students from the Slytherin house. So it's going to be a really lavish kind of room, and we're just blocking in tonight where the main features are going to be. And this is really important because as we get in here and do this, you're going to see me make subtle tweaks and changes about not subtle tweaks. They're going to be big tweaks about where locations are for objects. The doorway may move around a lot. You know, we're going to have to kind of finagle things into place here. And so the reason we're trying to keep things separate is to keep things fast and loose and not commit too early to how we're making things work here. So looking in the chats, Lorian says, after you did the shift spacebar thing to expand the source image, what did you do to put it back in the corner? So that's actually the exact same shortcut. So if you hover over a window, doesn't matter what window you're in, it could be any window, even the outliner. So if you hit shift and spacebar, it will make it full screen. And then if you hit shift and spacebar again, it will jump back to your previous window layout. So if you actually look up here, there's a button called back to previous, and again, that'll just put you back in your current layout. And so no matter what you switch to here, if you go into just a one window layout, there should be a back to previous button that will take you back to there. So let's see. MediaWorks says that's so cool. If you guys don't know who MediaWorks is, I partner with them. I'm actually streaming from the studio right now, so that's funny. I'm not sure which one of the MediaWorks members that is, but that's awesome. Glad you're in the chats. Lauren says, while you were making the window, why did you not build the ledge at the bottom at the same time? So the little ledge thing that you see here is actually a bench, and so I'm actually going to be making that as a separate object and blocking that in. And so good question though, good question. So let's keep going with the block out. So let's say, all right, well, we need a little bit more wall here. So what I want to be able to do is kind of extend the wall out to the side. And I learned a cool trick in Gleb and Eddie's new course that I hadn't really played with before, which is kind of interesting because there's not too many keyboard shortcuts I'm not familiar with at this point in time with Blender. But one of those things that we all kind of know and love is the slide command, right? So if you tap G twice, you can slide an edge up and down, sticking it to the same sort of track that it's on right now. What I didn't know was that if you use this thing called the clamp command, which you can access if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you can see it says clamp on or off. If you hit C and turn that off, you can actually continue to extend the slide beyond the original point of where it was. And so you can turn off the restriction there, which is really, really kind of cool, because if this is off at a weird angle, say it's at an angle like this and you want to edge slide, it's really hard to say, well, you're not constrained to the Y, you're not constrained to the X. You want to constrain to this weird angle that it's at from the top view, as you can see there. And so if I tap G twice and start to slide that, let me get to a good angle here so you can see actually what's happening. If I tap G twice here, I can go back as much as I want, but if I try to go beyond this point, I can't. But if I hit C, I can now go as far as I want in either direction, which is really, really cool. And very, very helpful. So, yeah, let's undo that. Okay, looking at the chat again. Yeah, so I'll have to get with my friends after the stream and see which one is in the chat right now. I'm not sure. The handsome one. There's a lot of handsome ones. So Lauren's asking, would you type in the link for the course you mentioned? Oh yeah, of course. So you can get it in a lot of places. Let me just show you where it is. Sorry, let me get my Windows is being a little glitchy, so hold on 1 second. Pull up my internet location over here. Yeah, so I just went through a couple of courses. One is the Gleb course with 80, and the other is a Chris Plush course. I'm going to show you both on Blender Market because they're both there, and it would be easy to see it. So I'm not affiliates or anything like that with these guys. They're just good friends of mine, and I'd love for you guys to go support them the way you're supporting me. So Blender Market's actually, it's a great time to buy these if you want to buy them because they're having a 25% off sale that ends tomorrow. So if you got a little bit of cash on you, you want to spend, now's a good time to do it to get this. So they have a hard surface modeling course that I just took, and it's insanely awesome. They show you anything and everything you would want to know about how to successfully create hard surface models for robots and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's done fantastically well. They're good friends of mine. They've been doing this for more than a decade. Great guys. Gleb is from Creative Shrimp. That's his company, and then 80 is from cgmasters.net. Which has a really good reputation in the Blender community. So I highly recommend this course. It's really good. I learned some things, which is I don't want to say there's always more to learn, but considering that I've done hard surface for a while now, I was surprised how much I learned watching this course, and it's a pretty long course. But I would highly recommend getting into this if you are interested. Now it's a bit more of an intermediate level course, so they do have an introduction side to the course that goes over some stuff, but the actual building of this robot is pretty hardcore, and they don't go slow. So, but if you're interested in hard surface, that's one thing I would recommend checking out. Sorry about that. And the other course I would recommend is checking out this car creation course. So this is pretty new too, just got released. But you can see from the renders here, amazing work from Chris Plush. He had a car course last year that was on a Jeep, and he just got done with this one. And they're helping me out with the illustration course. So Gleb and Chris have contributed along with Raynette Martinez and some other guys. Have done me a huge favor and contributed some tips for you guys on rendering 3D illustrations for this course that I'm working on. So please support them if you haven't bought these courses and you can afford it right now. Definitely do it because you will learn so much just from getting in here and digging through these things. As I said, I don't earn anything from recommending it to you guys, but I can tell you that whenever I get a chance to learn from some of these guys, I do it because they're experts in their field and they know what they're talking about. And so, yeah, a lot of really, really good stuff. I bought this course just so I can learn how Chris did the headlights for his renders because headlights are extremely difficult to nail when you're talking about cars. And you can see from his materials, he knows what he's doing in terms of making these reflections work and, you know, just selling this. So yeah, highly recommend checking that stuff out and get it if you can. So checking out the chat here. MediaWorks asking, how long do you anticipate the entire project taking from beginning until completion when you deliver it to your wife? So again, I'm hoping 8 hours. That's over a period of several days, but I'm going to try to make this sort of a conceptual illustration. So what that means is for areas that are key to the composition, that are really important to her in this case, such as the lamps, or let's say she really wants the lighting or certain aspects like the carvings on the mantelpiece or whatever to be amazing. I'm going to focus more hours on making those look good and pop on the screen. And then I'm going to kind of make the rest of this fade into the background. And so the way I'm going to accomplish that with this particular project is by using kind of a newer technique that I haven't done in the past, which is a little bit of combining the 2D world with the 3D world. And so what we're going to end up doing is deciding early on in the block-in stage which things I want to focus on, what's most important that I think she's going to want to see on the wall, and then what we're going to do for the rest of these details that are in the background, such as the little things against the wall, maybe the hanging sort of banners or whatever, little details all around. Because if you detail everything out perfectly, you might get a photorealistic illustration, which depending on your client may be what you want. But in my case, she just wants something pretty that is aesthetically pleasing, that is going to make her happy, hang out on the wall. So I can save a lot of time if I don't spend months making every detail perfect. And what that also does for me and for the viewer is it allows me to only add certain details, certain high, let's say high frequency details or a lot of details in the areas that we're deeming most important. And then the areas that are secondary, and a great way to think about this is like when you're taking a picture with a camera, and you've got depth of field happening, you've got things that are out of focus in the background. Those are less important. You've said that those are less important because you've decided to only focus on a certain area of the photograph in the scene. And so because of that, those areas are blurred out. And with the way that we're creating this, it can happen in a similar way by not focusing as much time and effort on those details. And so the way that we're still going to get away with that is by creating a little bit more of a two-dimensional painterly feel in those areas. So what I'll be doing is creating a rough pass, which is what we're going to kind of do tonight. We're going to block everything in. Sorry, excuse me. We're going to block everything into the scene, and then we're going to go back and we're only going to work up to a very high degree those things that are the most important for the scene. And then things like the banner or maybe the stones in the side of the archway, little details that are on the floor, things like that. What we can do is instead of me spending hours and hours and hours building a perfect photorealistic texture, what I can do is get away with photo bashing, painting stuff up in Photoshop, and sketching and kind of massaging those details into place, but in a rough way. And that may not make perfect sense right now, but I promise as I show you guys updates on this, you'll see what I mean. So the areas that are most important, the focal points, or the lights hitting and lighting the whole thing up, or where she decides like I really want to be able to see that clearly, we're going to spend maybe half the project or a little more than half of the project on getting those nailed. And then the last few hours, we're going to make sure that we get the whole scene finished. That's obviously the most important thing, is that we end up with a final product. But then we're going to make sure that we're going to prioritize, basically. We're going to prioritize how much time we're spending on each area. So looking at the other questions, is there any difference of what you're doing compared to if you're designing for a video game or virtual reality experience? Yeah, so it's completely different. There's a lot of rules in terms of technical limitations that are put on you and placed on you by the video game engines, or in this case, the VR engines, which is basically the same thing. For real time, you have poly count restrictions because there's only a certain finite amount of memory in your headset for the game engine, for whatever you're working on for real-time application. So you have a lot more to consider when it comes to how much geometry is in the scene, how many textures you're allowed to load before the computer starts to slow down, and you have to make an optimal real-time experience for the user, right? So that all has to be budgeted the way you would have a fiscal budget for a company, because you have so many polygons that you can do before the thing starts lagging, right? And then that's where you start making people angry in games because you're slowing things down. So the America says, bought the hard surface modeling course this Monday and 100% agree it's great. Best one as far as I know. Yeah, it's great. But they're going fast. On the other side, it's just vids you could pause, goes back if needed. Yeah, so definitely going to be worth some rewatching there. Good stuff. MediaWorks is asking, would you ever save time by importing pre-existing 3D models such as lamps, rug, fireplace, plants? Definitely. So depending again on the client, what your needs, what the end goal of this is. If it's for a portfolio piece that you're going to be showcasing your modeling skills, I would not do that, because you're going to kind of be misleading people that are looking at your portfolio into thinking that you did all of that stuff. But if it's for someone else's project and I only need to showcase something that is going to sell someone on a product, then yeah, we can save a lot of time by importing existing assets and just placing the main focal points, whether it be their logo or the thing that we're creating for a product visualization or whatever we're doing, into the scene. And yeah, if they have budget for that and we have some money to spend there where we can buy some models, import those, quickly get things into place, I would definitely recommend going that route rather than always recreating the wheel. So yeah, that's a good point. So Lorian's asking, I am already wanting an animation that will take us into the archway. What is going to be back there? So not sure yet. That's a good question, and we're going to need to kind of hash that out tonight. Peter Kraus, welcome to the chat. He's saying, what is the hotkey in 2.8 to get the menu containing mesh subdivide? Can't find it even in key settings. Okay, so I can pull up 2.8 if you want to see some stuff, but one thing I will tell you right now with 2.8 and the hotkey situation is that they have not mapped all of the hotkeys. I 100% believe that's because there's so much still changing in the background that they're just going to wait until it's not a priority. They're going to wait until they get a lot more things closer to the release date before they go back and they map all of the keyboard shortcuts back to what they are. Most of them are kind of in place, but a lot of the things that we kind of use right now that are tool specific are not really there. So I wouldn't hold my breath. If you want to use 2.8 and you don't see a keyboard shortcut for something you're used to using, but the feature is still implemented, go ahead and assign your custom keyboard shortcut mapping right now, because if you're waiting on them to update it for you and get it in place, I really don't think that's going to happen until maybe early next year, because, again, it's not priority. Okay, so Lorian's asking, what does photo bashing mean? So photo bashing is basically the idea of taking photographs or textures from photographs, and then instead of having to custom texture those or paint those, you're basically chopping out pieces of a hill in case of like grass, or like a texture from someone's t-shirt because you need some cotton or whatever. You're taking those raw parts of a photograph and you're kind of meshing and warping and trying to fit those into a surface of a model, so that you're saving yourself time from having to paint all of that stuff or render all of that stuff. And so by learning how to really quickly manipulate photography in Photoshop and cut stuff up and then kind of paint it a little bit so that it fits back in and blend things and put shadows in and all of that, you're saving yourself a whole bunch of time from concepting something custom in 3D. Because if you think about how many materials are actually just sitting around in an average scene, especially a scene like this where we have an entire architectural visualization that we're trying to accomplish fast, if we were to create all of this stuff from scratch, and I probably won't. I'll just give you guys a heads up right now. I'm probably not going to do that because I won't save any time. If we were to do all that from scratch, it could easily take months. Those scenes that you saw in my portfolio, all of those are hand done. None of those were done with anybody else's assets. I hand modeled all of those pieces down to the screw. And that's why a lot of years I would get 2 projects done, because it would take me that long to get everything finished. I put in over 100 hours on each one of those images over months and months and months. And so, again, if you're a modeler and you're kind of showcasing your modeling capabilities, that's kind of what you do. If you're a texture artist and that's what you're known for, and you're showcasing your ability to create shaders, you got to create your shaders, because you're trying to tell people that you know how to do that. And if you're going to be using other people's stuff, you at least got to be on the up and up and show them the breakdown of where your stuff begins and where it ends, and their stuff begins and where it ends. Because if you aren't labeling that kind of stuff, and in fact, I wouldn't do it. You can get away with it a little bit more if you're on the animation side, because again, as an animator, you don't need to model stuff. As an animator, you need to know how to make stuff move. And so, buy a model that's fully rigged, and then animate it, and then do that for a bunch of other models and showcase the movement, right? Because that's what you're selling. And that's where it makes the most sense, right? I don't sell myself as an animator. I sell myself as someone that can create really, really striking photorealistic visuals. So what I try to do is create as much unique sort of texture and form and things like that in my models, and the lighting and the atmosphere. That's the stuff that I'm kind of known for in my kind of work. And so I have to do all of that stuff kind of for myself, because that's what I'm trying to showcase. So yeah, just take that with what you will. And yeah, we haven't really gotten very far tonight, so I apologize for that, but I hope you guys are enjoying the stream. Definitely ask me some more questions if you want about Blender. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. So let's slide this one, hit C, and move that past. And let's jump into this section, do the same thing. Doesn't matter if these are not connected, they can intersect, and we basically get the same effect there. Okay, so at this point early, I'm going to go ahead and add a camera, because we're going to need to be able to see what we're doing. So let me get a drink real fast, and I'll be right back. Okay. So the camera is down here. Can't really see it right now. What I'm going to do is go ahead and rotate my 3D view into the basic low angle position that I want to try to match here. Now this is a bit more of a, I don't know, it's a weird angle because I drew this custom, so this is actually kind of a high up camera view looking down, and I don't really want that. I want something that kind of showcases the size of our scene here. So I'm going to make this a little bit more like eye level. So once I get the camera or the 3D viewport into the basic rotation angle point of view here, what I'm going to do to position the camera is use Control Alt and 0 on my numpad, and that's going to basically snap the camera to this current view. So now with the camera selected, by right-clicking it, I can go ahead and hit G, and then I can move that down while I'm looking through the camera and kind of see where that's pointing now. Now, now's the time also to start trying to dial in some basic settings so that your point of view is matching. So other than pointing it in the right direction, we also have camera settings such as focal length, which matters quite a bit here. So if we look at this basic layout, I can tell you from the way that I drew it, there's a little bit of 3-point perspective going on, which means that we're going to need a bit of a lower angle and a bit of a wide angle lens to make this work. So 35 is a really good starting point and may end up being what we actually stick with, because if you look at the verticals on the edge, they're converging only slightly up, and that's kind of what's happening here, except it's going the other direction because we're looking down. So I think 35 might be okay. Let's move this back a little bit. And if we find out that these aren't high enough, again, all we really need to do is grab that section there, and let's move that up in the z-axis. We'll grab this entire section here, move that up in the z-axis. And actually, because we have this sort of upper edge here, I'm going to go ahead and extrude that. So I'm going to extrude that upwards. Gives us a little bit of an alcove hangover there. And so we got another question. Lauren's asking, would you please activate the thing that shows your keystrokes? Do I still have that available? Don't know if I have that installed right now. Let me check if that's still installed in my preferences. Oh, yeah, there it is. I sure will, Lauren. No problem. Okay, so if you look in the lower left-hand corner over here, you should be able to see what I'm doing with my keyboard and mouse, if that helps. Okay, so one of the cool things about the camera features in Blender is that we've got this little thing called Passepartout, and what it allows you to do is darken the boundaries on the outside of the camera. So it's really, really cool to isolate what's out here so that you're only focused on the composition right now. You've also got composition guides. So if you turn these on and off, you can see where the center of your camera is. So this is just a center divide horizontally and vertically. And then you can turn all of these on off with check boxes. So you got center diagonal. You've got thirds, which is your classic, dividing the canvas into thirds, and all sorts of stuff. You got golden ratios, things like that. And these are really, really helpful when you're trying to figure out composition. So right now I'm not going to worry about that much, but I may very well come back to that. Okay, so here's where we start to decide where the placement of key things are in the scene, and we need to do that based on a couple of things. One is the placement of the camera, which at some point will be locked in and unmovable, and we will never want to touch it after that again. But at this point, we just placed it. It's really fresh in our minds, and we're still kind of fluid. So that's one thing we can move around. That's one variable. The other things we can change are the relation of big elements in the room from how close and how far away they are from each other, right? So how far is this door opening away from this edge of the wall? How far away is the door relative to the big window opening? How far away is, the chairs and all the other stuff we're going to put in here? Next thing is size relative to one another. Is this doorway going to be about as tall as this window in terms of the very top of it? Is the doorway going to be shrunken down even from the concept art? Do we want to make it smaller than this so that it feels like this window is huge? But remember, if we do that, we're going to have to scale everything else appropriately. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, because this was sort of a fantasy piece, there's some castle sort of elements happening here. This doorway can be abnormally large, but just bear in mind, you're going to want to make sure the scale for everything else matches. So let's go ahead and drop in a few more things as stand-ins here for this right now. I'm going to scale the camera up a little bit more so that it can be seen a little bit better there. So I didn't actually scale it. I pulled the size up over here in the camera settings. Let's go ahead and extend this wall out. And then let's start dropping in some placeholders. So for the furniture and the bench and all that kind of stuff, instead of modeling this stuff in, I'm just going to drop in boxes because that's all we really need right now. Because we're still going to be, scaling things and moving things around and all of that. Okay, so let's jump into top view here. And she wants this bench to kind of go all the way up against the side of the wall here so that it is touching there. And then I'm, embellishing a little bit, putting in some things that I think would work there, like these little statues or whatever is on the side of the doorway and all that kind of stuff. So those aren't super important, but if you want to get a little bit more accurate in terms of those positions, we can go ahead and drop those in. So here's an opportunity to talk about the way we duplicate things. So if you've seen any of my other videos, you probably heard me talk about this, but you've got two basic methods of duplication in Blender. Basically, you've got the normal duplication method, and then you've got duplicate linked. And so the difference being that if I duplicate regularly, these are two completely separate objects. And so if I edit one of these, they're different, right? If I duplicate this one with duplicate linked, and I update one of these, the other one's going to update with the same information because they're sharing the same data between these models. So you can see this cylinder in object mode using the object data that we have labeled cylinder. You can see there's two users, and you can see over here that this is using the identical form of data. And so if we are sharing that data, it's always going to update. Any changes we make in edit mode are going to be remembered and update across all of those linked models. Now, you can scale in object mode, and that won't change. But any local changes you make in edit mode will change. So you got to remember which one you actually have selected to be able to, you can see there, that changes the model. So yeah. So I want to go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate linked just in case we actually decide to make some changes in the block end. And that way I know these are going to be the same height as we see here. And let's add in a cube. And this is going to be like a stand-in for a chair. So I'm going to grab this top section here to decide how tall this is. It's going to be a really, really high back chair there. So again, not going to get too crazy about measurements and all that right now, but just want to eyeball stuff and kind of get that into place. Duplicate this now, and this is going to be the stand-in for the fireplace. And what we can do, because you see me moving around a lot right now from one view, and I can kind of get a little tiresome. So what you can do is if you jump into your panel over here, your end panel for all of this over here, your properties panel, you jump down to the display section, you can toggle this quad view, and that will actually open up 4 different views that will allow you to see from different sides. So we got top. This is actually sort of supposed to be a preview in like a 3/4 view here. You got top, you got front, you got right, and then you got your 3/4 view. And so instead of having to jump in and out all the time, you can just model from all of these sections all at once. So what's great about this is that now I can see from this sort of angle where everything's moving around and being tweaked. And if I want to actually accurately move this in one direction, I can jump into one of these ortho views, and now I can just, it'll update as I go. So we know from our sort of view here, maybe I want to jump into camera view by hitting 0 on the numpad, and that'll tell me where all my stuff is from the camera view, so which is kind of cool. So now I can just update stuff in all these other views, and it will show me in my exact framing where things are going. So the fireplace needs to go out of frame about this far. We know that from the concept art over here, select that top face, it needs to come up maybe about midway, and then it needs to come much further over in terms of its connection relative to the door. So maybe around there. Now bear in mind, this is representing the entire height of the fireplace, including the sculpted features and all that sort of stuff. So don't think of this as just the square part of the fireplace, but all of this stuff. So I'm going to bring that up. And to kind of better emphasize what that's looking like, maybe instead we keep the square part there. And then from this top view, what I can do is let's create a loop cut with 2 cuts there. Let's scale this out a little bit. And then let's grab that face, and we're going to extrude that up to represent some of that carving and stuff that's happening there. So just rough blocking. Let's see. We know basically in terms of the position of the door in the frame, it's not center. It's also not kind of on the third. The left part of that doorway may be on the third, and so we're way off in terms of where this needs to be pointing with our camera. So you can use those visual indicators of the landmarks in your image to say, all right, well, where should I be pointing stuff? And so if we rotate, we can say, all right, so that needs to kind of be somewhere around there in terms of lining that up, which means we're way off on our placement for the fireplace. So now we got to adjust that. And you can see why blocking in at this level is important, because if you don't take the time to do it when it's low res and there's nothing on nothing at stake, then you're really going to waste a lot of time when it comes to kind of do it. Because imagine if we had already modeled all of this stuff and we found out that the fireplace needed to be twice as wide. Well, you can't just scale it twice as wide, because you know, it's going to not uniformly scale all of the carvings and all that kind of stuff. So right now we can, because we're just getting the basics in place. All right, so let's kind of bump that over a little bit. Chairs were specifically talked about kind of being lined up in a semicircle around the fireplace here. So what we're going to do is put our 3D cursor sort of right in the middle of the fireplace. And then if I use the cursor as my pivot position by jumping down here and switching this to 3D cursor, we can then rotate a group of these chairs around this area. And so what I might want to do, because it's going to be in a perfect circle, is move this a little bit further back here and then try to do this. So I'm going to duplicate this with linked by hitting Alt-R. And then I'm going to rotate around the 3D cursor as you see here. Sorry, not Alt-R, Alt-D. And then rotate. And kind of see the arc that that's going to make. It's not far enough back. So let's move our 3D cursor a little further back. And then Alt-D, R. And then once I get it into a place in terms of the spacing where I think it needs to be, I can go ahead and left click to accept that. Then I want to repeat that command for the rest of these chairs. So I'm going to hit Shift R to repeat that last command. And that's just going to go ahead and place those chairs where they need to be in a semicircle like that. So there we go. Now if we want to rotate all these chairs to kind of face inward, what we can do is switch this pivot point back to individual origins. And that means everything that you have selected in object mode, each of these orange dots is an origin, so it's going to rotate those around those individually. And so now when I rotate with all this selected, it's going to rotate those backwards so that I can point them towards the fireplace, just like that. Okay, there we go. And now we can look in our camera view and say, all right, well, does that look good, or do we, is this a problem? So one of the things we can also do to help with, we don't have any lighting right now. So what we can do to make that a little bit easier to look at is turn on ambient occlusion. And that's going to kind of self-shadow some of the things in our scene. So if we turn the strength up, you can see what that's doing in our viewport here. And then you can turn the distance up, and it will kind of show those shadows there. So if you're having a hard time in shaded view because you're just having flat planes to look at, seeing where things are and what's going on, you can turn up this setting here, and it will allow you to kind of see those edges. Okay, looking back in the chat, we got some questions. Make sure I go back up. There's been a lot of questions. Let's see. Oh, no, there hasn't. Thought there had. Lauren says, I want the camera to show more to the right where the fireplace is and more of the floor. Interesting. Maybe we will do an alternate camera view and see that. So yeah, if you're going to go to the trouble to model an entire room, definitely do more than one camera angle. One of the reasons why that could be an issue in this case is because we may not model the rest of the room to save time. And I probably won't. I will probably only model what I need to model. Okay, so oh, okay, I already did it. All right, good. I'm glad it worked out. So one of the things that we have here is a couch. So let's go ahead and throw that in. So again, for the top view, that's easy. We just grab one of these, Shift D to duplicate that. Let's move it back. Let's clear the rotation with Alt R, and then I'm going to scale a little bit to kind of get that up in the right place. This needs to be less tall, because obviously these wingback chairs are very tall. So you can see there, drop that on the ground, scale this out to the side, and then we're looking at this big shape right here where to place that. Now bear in mind the sketch is from again a higher up angle, so we're seeing more of things that are in place here. So there's a couch, there's a coffee table in front of that, and you know, a lot of things happening here. So some of these chairs may not make it. We may delete those, don't know, but we got them there to play with. So let's grab our couch and move it. And we're not going to see the end of it from this camera view, so we can see how wide that needs to be. I want to make it kind of a really wide, you know, fancy couch. So I'm going to pull that back over to where you got this kind of centered. Now, we're kind of designing the room as we go. So you do want to keep in mind, you know, the way things would actually be working if this were laid out for, you know, functional purposes. But never sacrifice the function of something for an illustration so that it's overpowering the final look of the piece. Because function, although it has its place if you're doing something in 3D printing or something that needs to be perfectly put in place for you know, mechanical reasons or whatever. If you're doing an image or an illustration, something that's just supposed to be pleasing to the eye, you always want to go for your guts. You want to go with your gut, what feels best for the image. And if it feels off, there's probably a good reason that it feels off. So first thing you do is kind of go with your gut. Second thing you do is make sure that you go out there and you ask other people. I feel like it needs to be this way. Do you agree with me? And get a lot of feedback. You know, post it in forums, post it in, you know, share it with people that you know. I wouldn't ask friends and family necessarily as much because they're not always the most objective opinions. But people online, especially, will be very honest with you if you just ask for their feedback on what's going on. The one kind of tip that I would give you if you're going to ask for feedback is ask for a specific type of feedback. So don't just say, like, let me know what you think about this. I would say, let me know what you think about the placement of this couch, or let me know what you think about the layout of these pieces of furniture in this image, or let me know, do you think the lighting feels cinematic? Or I'm trying to go for a cinematic look with the lighting, and I want to mix elements of warm and cool on one side of the image and another on the other side of the image. How do I do that? Or is this working? You know, and you know, you can ask general questions as well if you feel like it. But I would highly recommend, if you're gonna get in there and ask for feedback, the more specific you can be about what you're after, the better responses you're gonna get in terms of trying to get better at a certain thing for your image. So otherwise, you're going to end up with tons of, yeah, it looks great, or, you know, no, it sucks. And it's like, well, okay, it sucks, but why does it suck? Like, and then you may not ever get a response again from that person. So don't waste the opportunity because you may only get one response from everybody, right? So just make sure you're asking the right questions to begin with. Okay. So let's take a look at some other stuff here. We got a rug, but that's really, you can't really see that. So maybe we'll put it in there. Duplicate that, scale it down. Might need to add a little bit of thickness to this to make it visible. So let's bump this up a little bit. I'm going to jump into edit mode, extrude this down a tiny bit. Now, when I did that, you can see it turned a little darker. So the normals got flipped on that. And that means that everything is facing to the inside of that box that we just created, which is not good. So what we're going to do is select everything in edit mode, and we're going to hit Control-N to flip the normals back to the outside. And now you can see that it should be the same kind of shading as the rest of these boxes to indicate that we're all the edges, all the faces are facing outward, which is what we want. Okay, so I know none of this is really to scale perfectly, but again, we're just kind of blocking in, so that's good. Lorian says the couch should sit more. The couch should move forward towards the fireplace, replacing the center two chairs. Okay, let's see about that. Pull those back. Now, if we can't even see these in the shot, which we can't, let's just go ahead and get rid of those. So now, maybe it's more about this sort of element. Now, again, the perfect alignment, this is a really good example, so I'm glad this happened. Perfect alignment from the top view would be to line these chairs up to where they're like perfectly spaced between the couch, and you know, that's exactly ideally how you would line this up in the real world, right? The problem is from this particular camera angle, maybe that doesn't really work because the way that the verticals line up on these chairs, just it's not pleasing to the eye, right? So this is where you get an opportunity to trump every other decision as an artist and say, no, I want to do this instead. Now, technically, is that an incorrect layout from a certain, you know, from a perfectly to scale view of whatever goes? Yeah, but everybody does that. Every filmmaker does that. Every artist does that. Everybody fudges on the details to get a better image in the end. And so you should not feel at all like you have to stick to some pre-game plan that you came up with. Feel free to deviate from your concept art if it gets you for closer to what you want. So let's move this a little bit over. And what I'm looking for here are overlapping details. So the couch is in an okay place, but the problem with this chair being right here is that maybe these verticals are right on top of each other, and we call that a tangent, right? So if the corner of this chair is butting right into the corner or the edge of the fireplace, in arts and composition, those are called tangents, and that's bad because basically what's happening is it looks like too perfect. It looks like you were trying too hard and you overplanned this, and then what happened is basically your eyes bouncing around the page, and where there's overlap there's depth, right? When there's overlap there's depth, and with depth becomes planes in your artwork and things to look at that are interesting because there's different levels of clarity, right? But the more you perfectly line things up side by side by side, the more it looks like fake. Even if it's not fake, you can do this with a photograph and it still looks weird. It just looks off. Another good example is if the height of our now this isn't going to work because these are linked, but if the height of these was perfectly the same, even if they're supposed to be manufactured perfectly, now it won't be here because of perspective, but if the height was exactly right on and the top of these lined up from left to right, that would be bad. So we don't want to do that. So we're having the same sort of issue right here. It's not perfectly tangent, but it's close enough that I'm worried about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump this over just a little bit to where it overlaps with the vertical coming from the fireplace. And that's just going to indicate that when we put the final details in place, that's kind of the placement that I want. I don't want it coming right up to that edge. I don't want it coming right up to this edge. I don't want the corner right here ending right on that line. None of that happening. The only place where that's acceptable is kind of like the floor, where you can't defy gravity. So it's got to be sitting on the floor, right? but move things in place where that's not happening. Here's a great example of something that's acceptable. This is fine. The overlaps, the verticals are staggered, right? So that's fine. That's what we want. And again, this is separate enough that it feels like there's dimension there. So that's good. Okay, so let's take a look at some more stuff. Now, this is about as far as we got with the concept art. So there's more stuff we can do. There's definitely stuff we can throw up on the wall here. So let's just say that we want to create one of these banners. So what I'm going to do is rotate this, and I want to extrude. A tiny bit so we get a little bit of a shadow there. And then I want to move this up to where it's on the wall. Okay, so this is the back wall over here. Bring it up to where it's kind of on the ceiling. Zoom out, go into wireframe mode, and we want this hanging sort of right down here, as you can see. So let's put this on the wall. I'm going to jump into edit mode. I'm going to grab this bottom face, and then I'm going to move that down to where it's kind of right about here. Now, if you want to go ahead and add in a little bit of shape detail, just to kind of get the basic form blocked in, that's fine. I wouldn't go any further than that at this point because you're just going to be wasting time. So let's grab those two middle vertices and we'll pull those up to kind of showcase. Okay, oh, okay, that's a flag. You can see from a distance, like, all right, that's a flag. That's all we need to showcase what that is. So now that's in place, we can just really quickly decide how far away from the door that is. So like, all right. Now here, again, here's another good example. Don't put this flag right here. Don't put the flag tip right there because it comes to an end and it ends right on that object. It just feels wrong. It feels like you made a mistake. You don't want that. So bump this over. It doesn't have to be a lot of overlap, but even this much shows that you put some thought into it and it's not an accident. Like this more than anything will separate the beginners from the people that have put thought and time into an illustration and are experts because they've thought this through. And this goes for 3D, but you know, as much as for 3D, it's for every kind of art down to pencil drawing and everything else. And it's actually more important for that kind of stuff because it's easy to move stuff around 3D, right? It's fast. If you draw something perfectly in ink or something for a character, something in an illustration, comic book, whatever it is, it's very hard to undo that and then move something around. So when you're planning at this stage where you're sketching or whatever, pay attention because now is the time to move big stuff around so that you're not, you're not screwing up. So, you know, let's just leave it there. It's enough of an overlap to show that it's kind of on purpose. Let's duplicate this. Let's move it over by -90 degrees. I want to put this on the other wall. So we're going to drag this over to about there. And I may go ahead and drop in, I'm going to duplicate linked, drop this in over here. There we go. Now this one's okay because it's not on a tangent, it's between. Now it may be a little too perfectly between. We got to decide for ourselves, but here again, height of the bench and height of this are exactly the same. That may be a problem because again, it looks too perfect. So just again, I keep saying that, but bear in mind that's kind of important. So here's another good reason why we linked these. So we're at a stage now where I want to kind of show that these are statues. Well, I don't want to have to model a statue, so let's just do a really quick version of one. So let's grab the face here on top. And it's very hard to do that from that view, so I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Now, let's go ahead, and I'm just modeling from this one here, but it's going to copy all those details over to that one as I go, which you can see as I model. So I'm going to inset with eye right here. Let's extrude up. Inset again, which is basically like an extrude, but you're keeping it all in the same surface. So that's kind of what that's doing. And then I'm going to extrude up with E. inset. I'm just giving some basic little ledges, like implications that there's some Roman type of detail in those columns, or I don't know, something like that. So we extrude this up, scale that, extrude it up, scale out, extrude up, extrude in, extrude up, extrude in, here. And then what we might do is like, let's pop the 3D cursor to the selected plane. We're just going to put that right in the middle of that face. Now let's drop in like an icosphere, which is going to represent our little statue or whatever that is. So I'm just going to drop this in right there. And once again, because we've duplicate linked, all of those are going to have the same sort of sphere on those. So now we go, all right, well, those are statues. Okay, very cool. And so now we might decide, well, they're a little too big. So if you're going to be moving things around a lot, and typically what I would do in this case to make this easier on myself is I would move the pivot points, so, or the origins. So the problem is you scale this right now is that it's going to scale from the middle of this cylinder, and I would rather it stick to the floor and just scale up and down, right? And so what I want to do is snap that origin point to the bottom of that statue. So let's go ahead and jump back into edit mode. I'm going to go down to underneath the floor, grab this plane by right clicking, Shift S to move the cursor to the selected plane there. And then let's move the origin. So there's a keyboard shortcut for this. It's Control, Shift, Alt, and C. It's the longest keyboard shortcut I swear I've ever seen in Blender, but that's what you use. So origin and 3D cursor is what we're going to do there. Now, you can't do that in edit mode. So you got to jump out of edit mode and then do that, and then it will jump to that 3D cursor. So now what happens is, because we've moved these around in object mode height-wise, those origins are now centered, but they're actually, these have been moved in the z-axis by 1 degree. So we need to clear the height in the z-axis. So I'm just going to type in 0 to clear these back out so they're on the floor again. And there we go. So you'd want to do this for everything. I'm not necessarily going to do that right now, but you'd want to do that for the fireplace, all the chairs and stuff. So they're just easy to scale, because every time you scale when it's not on the ground, you're going to have to move that back up and snap it to the floor and all that kind of stuff. So there we go. Let's take a look through our camera again. So Lauren says, I like the higher viewpoint of your concept drawing. It's more ominous. The camera seems too low. So let's play with that. So this is another good part of the block end. You want to play with cameras and experiment with that. So what we do here is we grab the camera, and we're going to duplicate this. So Shift D, let's move this up a little bit. And then I want to jump into that camera view. So right now, no matter what we do, we're stuck with this camera because it's the one that we currently have set as our main camera. So if we hit 0, that's the camera we're going to jump into. Now, if you want to switch that, all you need to do is select this other camera, and the keyboard shortcut to make that your camera is Control 0. So now this will be your main camera. And no matter where you rotate in your 3D viewport, if you want to go back to it, you just hit 0 on your numpad, and it will put you back in that camera. So if you want to know where that is, you can go under Object. Maybe it's View, actually. So View, Cameras, and then these are the two commands we're looking at right now. So set active object as camera, and then active camera as numpad 0. So what's interesting about this is you'll notice it says set active object as camera. You don't have to use a camera to look through something. You can use anything as a camera. So it sounds weird, but it makes sense. So let's say we want to add a light to the scene, but it's very hard to point the lights in a specific direction, and you really kind of need to dial that in. So let's say we add a lamp, but we're going to want to add something like a spotlight. Spot lamp. Okay. Scale it up a little bit so it's easier to see. Now, pointing this straight at this chair over here is, if you're trying to do that from here with the toggle quad view setting on, it's a little easier. You move this into place, kind of rotate it from here. You jump into this view, and then you rotate it this way, and you can kind of dial that in. But it's a little bit more effort. So you can use that same command here into the camera menu to set this lamp as your active camera. When you do that, it's going to look through this spotlight as your camera. And so now, let's say we turn on, well, I'll just leave it off. Now when we rotate in these other views, you can see that it's actually rotating in the camera view because the lamp is our camera. Now it's chopping off some things in our viewport here, and that's because the end of our lamp is not going beyond this point. So if you, let's see what we need to do here. There used to be some settings in here for the beginning and end of your lamps, but I'm not seeing that. So I'm wondering, maybe it's under the clip here. So, no, it's not there. So there is probably a clip somewhere we could change for the camera view, but I'm not seeing that in the camera options. So it's probably not in this version of Blender. Anyways, the reason it's clipping all these objects out of view is because we're not low enough to see them come into view, and that's only because the cone of the lamp ends up here. So one of those things that if it was a camera, you just basically, under the camera menu, the start and end clipping, you can change here for how far the view goes in the 3D viewport, and that's what you would change. But in the camera, it doesn't appear that there is one of those anymore. So Carlo and Riccio, Carlo Andre, sorry man, can't pronounce your name. Says using non-camera objects as camera is one of clip settings. So yeah, I guess that's true. There used to be some settings that would allow you to change the clip on those in older versions of Blender, but I guess they're not there anymore. Anyways, so now what you can do is when you're here and you want to point this towards a specific object, you can start rotating from this point of view and just point the camera wherever you want to point it. And then once you have that dialed in straight down the middle, you know that positively that lamp is going to be pointing in the right direction. So yeah, that is why you can have multiple objects be set as a camera view. It's a really good way to kind of make sure your objects are pointed in the right direction and things like that. So let's jump into the second camera that we created here, and we're going to kind of distribute where this is in the 3D scene by moving it up. And then I'm going to point it down a little more. And now we're just going to aim for getting a little bit more of that sort of top-down 3/4 view from the angle here so that we can see some of this. Now, one thing we didn't do is we didn't create like a coffee table sort of thing. So let's go ahead and add in the coffee table that we have here. So this might go a little further out. And again, I'm not really too worried about how perfectly realistic this sort of thing is right now, because again, we're just trying to get these kind of blocked in where they are, and then we can worry about scale, and then we can worry about details. But if you work in that iterative sort of way on your projects, then you're gonna have a lot easier time trying to get things kind of dialed in, because again, you work out the big stuff first, then you go back and you work out the smaller stuff, the medium stuff, and then you work out the very, very tiny details on the object. So let's drop that down a tiny bit. Maybe something like that. Okay, so we may not even see that here, but just in case, let's go ahead and put that in. Okay, so from this angle, again, depending on if we want to keep the door the same scale or not, we would need to bump up the scale of the door. So here's where we could grab that edge and say, all right, well, this needs to be way higher. So let's pull that up to about there. And of course, doing that may make you decide to change the width of the door. So if you do that, you're going to need to pull that over, or maybe grab both of these edges and scale those apart. Now we're still in individual origin. You need to go back to median point if you want to scale two edges apart like this. But that would allow you to make this door a little bit wider there. But now that we've done that, we're gonna have to move these apart. So bear in mind, it's gonna make an impact, right? So let's jump over here. It's a little still hard with this shading to see where everything's going. Part of that's because we haven't extruded this wall. So let's go ahead and grab some of these edges here And let's extrude a hallway sort of back this direction. Okay, so now from top view, you can see where these walls sort of begin and end and stuff like that. Okay, so not only placement wise where this is kind of sitting, but we may also have to change where how big this actually is in the final scene. So if we're noticing that, okay, well, this needs to be sitting in between this corner in the wall and not overlapping into the doorway, well, then we need to make a global change to the size of this object. Now we can do that in object mode, but it's only going to update one of these objects, right? We don't want that. We want to update all three of these statues. So because they're linked, once again, let's jump into edit mode. Let's grab all of the vertices from this here. And I'm going to move the cursor position back to this face. So let's cursor to selected there. And then while in edit mode, let's select everything, make sure our cursor is our pivot point, and then let's just scale down. So now, in this view, we can see that we're going to be able to fit the width of the statue between the side here and the door opening there. There we go. Now that will be the same for all of these. So we should be able to move those into place now without any problems. And this is basically what you do for block in. You go through, try to make sure everything is consistent and placed correctly, and there you go. All right, so maybe we want to move this out a little bit more there. All depends on the camera view. Because again, all those little tangents that we talked about, those will change now because we've changed the view of this camera. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. Now you can't go full screen while you've got quad view up. So if you want to go full screen with that shift spacebar command, toggle the quad view back, and then you can jump in and out of separate windows again, like this, in the 3D viewport. So let's turn off all the menus. We can hide this camera if we want to get that out of the way, and now we can kind of look at what our composition looks like now. Carlos says full stop and comma switch between 3D cursor and medium modes. Yeah, good tip. So period and comma will switch between your pivot points down here for these. And yeah, I don't really use that keyboard shortcut a lot, but it's a good tip. Okay, so let's play some more. Now, this was a good block in for a sketch, but we've obviously got a lot of things we haven't put in the scene yet to fill out this huge area. Because if you look here, a lot of the room has been filled up, but there's a whole lot of the room that hasn't been filled up. And ultimately, these walls are going to continue to extend. You got to pretend like the whole thing is there, even if it's not. So let's go ahead and talk about some things that we could add in. So one of the things we haven't done yet is play with the idea of this sort of hanging lamp. Now these are supposed to be sort of everywhere, and then I'm thinking about doing one big one as a chandelier in the middle of the room. And again, that'll all depend on whether or not you're going to see it. So now is the time to throw that in there and see if we're going to be able to see any of that stuff. So I'm going to create a new object. Let's reposition the 3D cursor. And I'm going to go ahead and create an icosphere. Scale that up a little bit. And I just want to try to get a basic feel for how big these would be. So because the chairs are roughly the size of maybe a person, in terms of the width and stuff, I'm going to use this as a guide for how big these should be. So we're going to want to make these quite a bit smaller, because these aren't the focal points. These are just little medium-sized lights, we'll say, that are hanging from the ceiling. So maybe they're about a little bigger than the size of a human head, something like that. And of course, we're going to want to indicate that some things are going on here. So I'm going to grab some faces. We're just going to do some basic modeling to try to get some of this blocked in. then I'm going to go ahead and pull those up like that. So these will be hanging from the ceiling, and again, we have no idea what the architecture looks like on the ceiling. It could be vaulted, it could have, who knows, there could be windows, there could be all sorts of things happening, skylights, stuff up there. So what we really need to decide from this angle is how high is the ceiling, because that will indicate whether or not these are going to be seen in the shot at all. Now, there's a good chance they will be, because we can see the height of the door below frame. So there's a good chance that in the foreground we might have some barely dropping into view, or unless they're really, really low. There might be a case where for stylistic choices you would drop these super low for hanging over, you know, tables or desks or something like that. So maybe that's something we could talk about. But yeah, you'd wanna play with that. So let's jump into side view, and let's just assume, you know, worst case, best case scenario, that's about as tall as that cord goes. And let's just say for now, okay, well, this is the height of the ceiling, right about where it is now. And these are all going to be here. So yeah, from this angle, you're going to see a tiny bit of this. If we unhide that other camera, jump back into that with Control 0, might see a little more because it's pointed up a little bit. So might end up doing that. Now again, you can fudge this. This is where you get to be an artist and decide, all right, well, I actually want to see a lot more of these, so I'm going to drop these lower. Now again, you got to watch the height. You don't want to drop it here because it lines up perfectly. Don't want that. You want it here. You want it here. You know, here's a little weird because it's lining up with the top of that ball. So you got to watch it. You know, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that stuff. So that's good. And we can just decide for right now what kind of layout do we want. So some of this will depend on other furniture. So let's say we got some desks. Let's pull those over. And these are going to be more, you know, big, long tables or something that you would have for people to be working at or reading at, who knows. But those are going to be maybe over here. Okay, so that obviously won't work because for this view or the other view, it's going to be in the way. This view, it would not necessarily be a problem, so that might work. But you got to ask yourself too at this point, which camera view is going to be more dynamic, right? Even if we move this out of the way, and let's say we stagger that a little bit, which camera view is going to be more dynamic? This one that's a little bit higher up, again, we got a tangent there, gotta watch that. This one's going to be a little bit more higher up. Might give us a little bit more depth in terms of the objects, so we could see a little bit more from the top about how far back those objects are going because of how wide they are. The bottom camera is going to give us a little bit more dynamic view because it's pointed up, right? So we're getting a little bit more of a sort of a hero angle of this room, and it's a little bit more it gives you that wow factor. It makes it look big, right? Big. So in this case, if we go with that bottom view, even just that little shift in view there means we really aren't going to be able to get away with this desk being there. So we're going to need to pull that back. And, you know, once again, you need to pay attention to where that is. You want that sitting on the ground. And because we moved that over, I'm going to go ahead and just leave that there. And let's play with some other ideas. We might rotate one back into this direction. We could frame some of the image, which might be an interesting concept. Putting something really, really close to the foreground so that it's right next to the camera. And then if we rotate this a little bit, we're going to be kind of introducing some depth there. And you got to remember, this will be like a desk or something, right? So let's say we duplicated these and we still want to use the duplicate linked, but we forgot to use the duplicate linked. Let me show you how to connect those up. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to grab one of these objects, and you're going to need to jump into the object data settings here. and you're going to notice that it's labeled cube.008 and this one's labeled cube.005. So all you got to do is jump into this one and say, all right, well, I'm just wanting to use this data. So remember the name of this one, cube.005, and then drop down and select cube.005. Now you're going to see that there's 2 users for this data, and now they're linked. So anything you do to this one will be done to the other one. So let's go ahead and make this look a little bit more desk-like. These are still lined up perfectly with the X and Y axis on this one, but they're not on this one, which is a great example of why you might want to model with a duplicate linked object, because one of these you can keep off to the side that's perfectly lined up, X to Y, and the other one doesn't have to be, and you can really quickly make changes, and all the other objects are going to copy those local settings. So now we can grab this, pull this up, and then we can say, all right, well, let's just grab these 2 faces and let's bridge those edge loops. So we'll search for this command here, bridge those edge loops. You can go to Control F or Control E. Yeah, Control E and then bridge edge loops. And that's basically going to connect both of those faces with faces between so that those are all one single thing. And we're going to delete the bottom face there. There you go, got a little table. And that is now a little table over there too. If you really want to, you can chop off the legs in between. So you need to drop in a couple of edge loops here. Pull those out to about the right size. And then once again, we can hit Control E, bridge edge loops. And then Control Shift R to repeat that command, and then delete those 2 bottom faces. And there you go. You got 2 tables. And now we got to think about scale. So they may be the right basic proportions, maybe they're the right length and width, kind of, but maybe they're a little bit too tall, right? And so I'm thinking about the rest of the furniture. You know, we kind of got the chairs and the couch kind of feeling correct in terms of where they're positioned with the fireplace. And now you get into that question of, okay, do I want to change 5 objects to match the scale of this, or do I want to change 1 object to match the scale of that? So you got to kind of think like a little bit strategically about how you do this. So let's go ahead and just change this one that we created here. And I'm going to do this in edit mode so that it affects this one as well. And grab these faces up top. I'm just going to move those down a little bit to where from the side we're about the same height as the couch. So if you could think about these boxes that are representing the wingback chairs, about halfway down we're going to have where the cushion starts, or the arms of the chair, right? And where the cushion's sitting a little lower than that, maybe around 1/3 of the way up of this box, that's where you're going to be sitting. So you can imagine yourself, all right, well, if that's the case, let's go ahead and let's model a really, really basic chair. So let's put that in there, and then we're going to say, all right, well, let's create these. And I want to go ahead and delete that face, but first let's go ahead and put an edge loop back here. Let's turn on our snapping on vertex snapping. I'm going to extrude down on the z-axis, hold control to snap to the same height as those. Hit F to join those faces up, and then F there and F there with the F2 modifier turned on, and F2 add-on turned on in the add-on section, which will allow us to automatically join those faces up. So now what we want to do is create another sort of section for the arms of the chair back there. And then these middle sections, we can go ahead and delete these. So let's rotate into a view here. We'll grab all this stuff, delete those. And we'll join those up. FF, FF, there we go. Now we got a little chair. Jump out of local view with / on the numpad, and we got those chairs. So what I did that for is just so that we could duplicate one. Again, Alt-D, rotate, and let's see if this desk is accurate in terms of the scale. Okay, so if I'm sitting in this chair, cushion or no cushion, whatever, it's a little thick, a little high, and now we know what we need to tweak. So let's scale down the thickness of this table, this desk or whatever, and let's pull down the height a little bit. Now, we can debate all that sort of stuff in terms of logistics and design and all that, but basically this will let us know, is it close enough to be okay? Something like that. Okay. Now those are a little bit more accurate. I'm going to get rid of that chair. And there we go. Let's go ahead and grab the bottom of our coffee table. We want that to be a little bit more accurate. Let's drop that to the ground. Now's the time where we've got things kind of a bit more in place. So if I really want to spend some time getting some basic block-ins for these objects in place, now we can do that. So you can see I'm not spending a lot of time on this, just really quickly trying to make sure that we have things appropriately in place. This is going to be one of those kind of fancy leather couches. So again, I'm not modeling details, not even modeling the appropriate, any of the appropriate details for this, but I'm just trying to get everything blocked in and in place so that we're good to go on this. Okay, so there's a couch. And we do the same thing with the fireplace. Grab this face and go, all right, well, this needs to come out to maybe about there. That comes out to about there. Inset this. Let's just go ahead and delete those faces. Okay, don't need this stuff. So let's get rid of all these faces on the bottom. And the faces on the back, because those are actually facing inward, which you can tell by those weird shading happening. Okay, grab all of those faces in that loop behind there. Let's pull that back. And I'm going to go ahead and do that to the outside as well. So I'm just going through and grabbing all of these faces. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that face back there because we don't need that. Also, the faces back here we don't need because we're facing the wall. So now we can grab the entire edge loop all in one go. And these we just want to move back to where they're at least touching the wall like that. Okay, so we're moving towards accuracy. A little bit more, dialing in what these objects kind of need to look like, right? And then at any point in time, we jump in our camera view and go, all right, well, how close are we getting here? So let's jump back to this camera view, Control 0. A little bit more of that proper angle going on there. We've got some discrepancies a little bit with the alignment of our objects for depth from the couch to the rug. The rug's a little bit further up in this one in terms of how far out that comes. So we want to change that. Grab the vertices, drop back into camera view, pull those up in the y-axis until we're kind of in the right place. Now, again, this is a little bit more of a straight-on angle, so we're a little bit turned more than we should be. So we probably want to bring this one over and then re-rotate the camera to be facing a bit more this direction. And then if we're too far forward at that point, we could pull back a little bit to reposition where this window edge is. But that's again, we're trying to get the main features locked. So this vertical in the window needs to be here. The start and end of the doorway kind of needs to be around that first third, like we talked about over here. And then the fireplace needs to go definitely beyond the frame. End of the sculpture sort of details would end sort of about the first quarter of the fireplace on this side needs to be out of frame. So that's close, you know. We could kind of debate on whether we need to bump this back over a little bit, which is entirely possible, and would all depend on how much of that we want to get in the shot. And so yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to continue to be doing here as we get in and do the block in. But I hope you guys enjoyed kind of the thing tonight. If you guys want me to do more of the Ask Me Anything sort of things, we didn't get a lot of questions tonight, so I'm happy to do as many of these as you guys want. If you want to jump in and talk more about Blender. In the future, I'm going to be doing live streams 7 to 9 p.m. ish every Friday night. And so come back to this channel, subscribe if you haven't already, because it's very, very new. We just launched it, and this is actually the first public video that you're seeing on the channel. So I will be adding more short form tutorials to the channel. If you have any ideas, things you want to see, things that would be fun for me to cover, drop a comment below tonight so that I can read those and respond to you guys. Again, hope you guys had a good time. I had a good time hanging out with you guys and enjoyed joking around some. So if you are pumped and excited, then yeah, drop me a comment. So Lorian says, please continue with the Slytherin room and the dragon. I hear ya. It should be fun. So I will try to save a little bit more of this so you guys can see how it's coming along. And I will share this with you. And then maybe I'll do a reaction video, let you see Laura and what she thinks about it as I give her this present. So a lot of fun stuff happening in the guilds. There's so many things going on behind the scenes. I wish I could share all of it with you, but there wouldn't be any fun surprises if I did that. So what I will tell you is that if you missed the first part of the stream, end of October-ish is kind of when I'm planning on releasing the next course for the Orange Guild. So if you have not seen the Orange Guild yet, let me kind of break down a little bit of what we're all about. So we're in the middle of some big changes over at the guild right now. This is what you're going to see when you go to the homepage, theorangeguild.com. This will pop up, sign up for the mailing list, and you're going to get notifications when we have streams. You're going to get when we start doing tutorials and we do blog posts and we do things like that and resources, and you're on the mailing list. You're going to get that stuff for free. So definitely jump in and be on the mailing list because it's going to be a fun time. So the front page, you're going to see a little bit about me and what I do as a Blender instructor. We have a little bit of a blog going. A lot of this is getting changed up behind the scenes. I'm working with one of my my technology guys to kind of get things in a better place for the organization, the flow, and just make it a lot easier for you guys to use. So we've got a few blog posts up, not a lot, but this will all be changing around a little bit more. And then, of course, you can see under training, we have all these courses that you can see here. A lot of people have been jumping in the questions and critiques for the Ask a Mentor section. If you aren't part of the guild and you just want to buy this feature, you don't have to enroll in the guild to be a monthly member for this. You can just enroll for $25 and then join and ask me stuff. And so basically what that means is you can join right now. This won't be up forever this way, but for right now it's still here because I want to encourage you guys to get involved. So you can submit questions, and then as you ask questions, you can come in here and post screenshots of what you're working on. I'll get back with you, answer things about what's happening, and these are all, anybody in the guild that's part of this course can see the discussion. So you can all benefit from what's happening, and Lorian's been in here a lot, asking lots of questions. There's tons of stuff in here that I've been kind of having fun getting to know you guys and learning a little bit more about you. Lots of courses coming your way, but there's already some up. So these are some of the live streams from my other YouTube channel. This is free to enroll in if you guys want to enroll in that. Several streams up there. The membership is going to get you access to everything. So if you want access to all the courses, you can become a member currently for $9 a month or $100 a year. This will be going up as we add tons more value. So right now I'm keeping it as low as I possibly can so that you guys can get as much out of the stream as much out of the guild as possible for very, very low amount of money. Other people that are running sort of subscription services like that, they're 2 or 3 times more expensive than this, and that's because they have a lot more content. And so what you're going to see is we come out with more and more courses. You're going to see me releasing courses, trying things out. A lot of the things that change are going to be dependent on your feedback I get from you guys. So if you're enjoying things the way they are, tell me that. If you're not enjoying the way things are, tell me that too. And so when you join currently, you get access to all of the stuff here for one low monthly fee. Or I'm considering options for ways to offer things for one-time payment options. So all of these courses, because they're a little bit older, they've been out for a couple of years, things like that. These are set at a certain price. You can buy those. You don't have to be a member of the guilds permanently or monthly to do that. But basically, once you pay the fee for the course that you want to buy, you get access permanently to the course, and you can watch it online as long as you ever would want to. Here's all the lectures for the course, and previews are here and things like that. So all of that comes with you being able to ask me questions. We can always chat about stuff inside the course, what you're doing, what you're working on. I'm available to talk with you guys whenever you want. This one just got updated, so there's some new things in here not too long ago that we talked about, and I'm actually continuing this project into the 3D illustration course for this month, so you might recognize some of these models from the 3D illustration. But anyways, sorry if I am rambling a little bit, but I wanted you guys to know what is available to you, because the guild is it's basically here for you guys. It's here for you guys to grow as artists. I'm doing this full time now, as somebody who's trying to make this better for you guys, turn this into something that really stands out as something that can mentor you and help you through the issues that you're facing as an artist. So the guild is for anyone and everyone that's a Blender artist right now that wants to try to be better. And if you're a game artist, or you're an illustrator, or you're an animator, or whatever kind of 3D artist you are, visual effects, I've done a little bit of everything. I consider myself a generalist, and so I'm available to chat with you guys inside the guild, inside the courses, about anything and everything. And so if you are interested in tackling that sort of stuff, then definitely consider joining the guild, because the best way to very quickly level up your skills as an artist is to be with other people that are doing what you do, getting feedback quickly, getting good feedback from good people that know what they're doing, that have been out there, that have had the same problems, and have learned over the years how to overcome certain things. And so I'm not claiming that I'm some guru that knows everything, but what I will tell you is that I've spent a lot of years with Blender. I started using Blender back in 2004. It's been a long time with the software, growing up with it since high school, and I'm now one of only 50 people in the world that's a Blender Foundation certified trainer. I have a lot of friends in the Blender community that are amazing resources, amazing instructors that have their own businesses. And what I'm trying to do at this point is kind of find my own path forward, so I can help you guys in a different way than everyone else has helped so far. So my dream is to take this and turn it into something that really can help the most amount of Blender artists as possible. And I want to motivate you guys. A lot of the stuff that we're coming out with on the YouTube channel soon is going to be a lot more focused on getting you guys pumped about artwork, getting you guys really into what you're doing, what projects you want to work on, and then helping you get over those humps, get through that artist block, getting through those walls that you're currently finding hard to knock over, and whatever you're facing. The only way I know how to help you get through that is by talking to you guys. So the more that we can have discussions, wherever those are, the better we're going to be able to find things that can help you become a better artist, help you get jobs, help you, I've had people, the best feeling I have in the world is when I hear from a student who took one of my courses and he's like, hey man, just want to let you know, I got my first job because, I took your course and it changed my life. Like, that is the best feeling I can possibly have doing what I do, and getting someone to that next level and helping them out. And so I want to do that for you. Whatever you guys are working on, I want to find a way to help you out. And so if you If you want that, if you want to be involved, plug in. First step is getting on the mailing list. Second step is seeing if the guild is a good fit for you. And I'm currently working on a course that will give you kind of a sneak preview of the guild, a little bit more Blender beginner training as we ramp into doing a whole new set of courses for 2.8 when that comes out next year. And so just let me know. Let me know when you get on the mailing list. You can reply to emails or whatever that I send you, and I'm always listening. Lorian can tell you, I respond to pretty much anything and everything people email me, and I'm really just I'm here to make a difference. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like the video tonight, the stream if you enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe because the subscriber count is it's pretty low because we just launched, and so let people know that it's here. And yeah, so loving that. Narrative, not really, not sure if I said that right. Hello, I just saw you in the chat popping in. So we're about to sign off here, but I want to let you know that I am listening, and definitely leave me a comment. So I'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, I may be emailing out a survey to ask you guys what you want to learn about in this next upcoming course. And so if you get the survey, please take 5 minutes, fill it out. It's only going to be maximum like 5-10 questions. And they're going to be easy questions just about what struggle you have with 3D illustration, anything Blender specific that's like driving you crazy right now that you're mad about or frustrates you. And it doesn't have to be just Blender stuff. You know, if you want to learn about something else, feel free to ask, and I'm here for you guys. And so yeah, so Narrative, I see your comment saying that's over. Yeah, it's over. So this will be recorded and played back immediately after I get off. So if you missed it, don't worry about it. You can go back and watch it. It's still going to be around on the YouTube channel. And then make sure you get here a couple of hours earlier next week on Friday night because at least it's Friday night here. So I don't know where everybody is in the world, but I put that in the banner on the YouTube channel. So if we head over there real fast, and then I promise I'll get off and I'll let you guys have your weekend. But let me jump back into YouTube real quick and show you what this looks like. Okay, so as you can see, we're live right now, and this will be, it's not always perfectly up right after I log off, but it will be up. Give it an hour or so to kind of buffer and get everything kind of saved, and then it will be up for you guys to watch. But subscribe, and then you will see up in the upper right hand corner if you're on a desktop. Hopefully this shows up on mobile, don't know, but 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time, and that's because I'm in Central Time in the USA. And then you can see down here at the bottom it says Saturday at 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. UTC. So this is apparently universal time. So hopefully that helps people that are outside of my time zone get a feel for where they should be. People in the States probably won't have a problem, but people outside of that might have an issue if they don't have a frame of reference. So this is here for you guys to kind of make plans. And like I said, there's going to be new videos uploaded. I'm going to try to start doing that weekly. It's been a bit of a challenge as I've been working on this course, but yeah. So again, hope you guys enjoyed tonight. I will be available, listening to comments, responding, replying as much as I possibly can, and haven't missed one yet, I don't think. So hope I can keep that up. So in the meantime, hope you guys have a great weekend. Come hang out again next week at 7 p.m. Central Time, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good evening.